DJ Dewey Rock on the track.
Welcome to eMERS Podcast 360. I'm your host, Maserati. We want to thank you for tuning in. No matter where you are in this metaverse world, we'll continue to bring you the best quality content and formula that we know how. This is being brought to you by Involve Social and Civic Club, where we understand the social and civic needs of love, learn, live, and laugh. Once again, we want to thank you for all the likes and shares on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now YouTube thus far. We got a great show. We want to thank you once again. It's Marshay Green, Beyond the Game, one of our own. It's Sunday, Beyond the Game. Marshay Green, a native of Bastrop High School, 4-year letter at Bastrop High in football, basketball, and track, where he was a 4-time All-District, 3-time All-State, and MVP and Offensive Player in 2004. He leads the team in 98 TDs, punt returns with 8, and rushed for over 5,000 yards. He was the MVP in high school in the football game in 2005, where he signed with Ole Miss his junior year, where he went on the letter 4 years, 2 years as wide receiver, 2 years as a defensive back, and he leads Ole Miss in history with punt returns all time. He is best known and well known for the MVP of the Cotton Bowl, where they were victorious, and he clamped down the number 1 wide receiver at the time, Michael Crabtree. He leads the Cotton Bowl in punt return yards all-time history in the bowl game. He was then signed by the Arizona Cardinals as a free agent, undrafted in 2010, spending 2 seasons with the team before going on to spend another 2 seasons with the Indianapolis Colts, where he finished his career 2 years in the CFL with the Saskatchewan Raiders. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome home, one of our own. It's Beyond the Game with Mr. Marshay Green. Marshay, how you doing today, bro?
Yeah, what up, LO, man? Can't complain, man. Just taking it one day at a time, man. Staying out of trouble. Just taking care of my son, man. Everything good this way.
Right, bro. We glad that you could stop through eMERS 360, bro. We like giving homage to those that have done spectacular things like yourself. The resume that was introduced just then, and it's outstanding. Some of the things that you was able to accomplish here in Bastrop, throughout high school, throughout your college career, and on to the NFL and the CFL. Tell us how it was coming up in Scrap City for you.
Well, I'm originally from Bonita. Me and my family moved to Bastrop when I was, I want to say when I was going to the 3rd grade. And so, once I got to Bastrop, I saw a lot of kids that had the same aspirations as me. They wanted to play football, and they wanted to play basketball. And so, it kind of really kicked off once I moved from Bonita to Bastrop. And, yeah, man, I enjoyed my time there as a kid.
Right. So in the transition of moving from the country to Bastrop, you started to get more exposure later on in high school than you did junior high?
Yeah, so, well, Bastrop and Bonita is almost the same place, so it's still the country. But Bastrop, they had, like, organized sports. Like, they had Dawson Park. They had Carter Park where kids played Pee-wee football. And so my pops was able to sign me up. And so, man, basically, man, like I say, there was a lot of kids who wanted to do the same thing as me. They wanted to play basketball, or they wanted to play football. And those two sports was outlets for kids in basketball. So, yeah, man, I stuck with it, man.
Right. So we know that you was outstanding in high school, man. I wasn't able to see you play throughout your high school career, but I was able to go back and look at a lot of highlights, a lot of articles, and you stayed in the press, bro, and you went on to do a lot of things that probably no one at your size, I'm gonna put it that way, pound for pound, during your era. You was probably one of the greatest athletes to come through Louisiana during that time. Tell us a little bit about that journey and how it was playing up under legendary Coach Bradshaw.
I would say that was probably my best experience playing ball because I got a chance to play ball with all my brothers. So my freshman year playing football, I played varsity. My next to the youngest brother was a sophomore, and I had a brother that was a junior, and I had a brother that was a senior. So we all got a chance to play football on the same team. And so, for me, that was the only thing I came in trying to do, trying to hang with my brothers. Coming up as a kid, those guys inspired me. I always wanted to be the little brother that they can turn to and say, yeah, that's my little brother right there. So, I just always try to put my best foot forward and always just try to represent for my bros and stuff like that. But yeah, man. So basically, I played from my freshman year all the way into my senior year. I started, and I also spent time with Jeremy Doty. Coming up in Brussels High, playing ball, man, I learned a lot from Coach Tip, who was my running back coach, and I owe a lot of credit to. Tip really taught me the game, really taught me how to watch him, and then also he taught me how to really be mentally tough. So basically, I just took all that stuff, man, and basically I just gave it my all each and every game, each and every practice. Now, I'm definitely not the biggest guy, so I had to be delusional. I had to hype up myself a lot coming into games, coming in competing with other kids, because I was so small. But I didn't realize how small I was until I got to college. So, I always was competitive. I always was the hardest worker. Those were small things there took me further than the average kid. Because I knew if I show up on time, if I give it 110%, anything is possible. And so, playing at Brussels High, man, I would say that was my best time playing football. Yeah.
Right. So you guys never won a state championship, but you guys was state contenders. From what I hear, you guys had all the potential. Just maybe it wasn't your guys' time, but you went on to do some outstanding things, as we said before, and you went on to play at Ole Miss. Kind of tell us about the transition of being recruited and then going on to play at Ole Miss.
The transition of being recruited and going on to play at Ole Miss. So when I was in high school, I would always go around all these college campuses with Charles Porter, Claude Rose, which was the number one D tackle recruit coming out of junior college, and this was my sophomore year in high school. So I really got a chance to see all the colleges like LSU, Texas A&M, and from my experience and trips there, it made me believe one day that I could play college football. And so the more and more that I started going to these colleges, I just put it in my mind, I'm going to college and I'm playing on Saturdays. So when I started to get recruited, my intentions wasn't to just go to Ole Miss. My intentions was to play in the SEC. And basically you play against the best competition. You play against Florida, play against all the good teams, right? So that that was my goal only. But then when they started recruiting me pretty hard, and I took my visit there, it felt like home. All the players they was recruiting, I got a chance to get to know those players, and I really got a chance to bond. So in terms of picking the school that I wanted to go to, that was pretty much easy because I didn't feel like home when I went to like a couple other schools, but I felt like Ole Miss was home. So I go to Ole Miss and I start instantly my freshman year. My coach during the time was Ed Ogeron, and so I start my freshman year at wide receiver in punt return, and I start my sophomore year at wide receiver in punt return, and then my junior year when Coach Ogeron got fired, Christian Rep came in. And man, it's crazy because I was penciled in to be the starting one X wide receiver going into my junior year. I just had a great off season, and I really, really got the chance to really learn the position because I never played wide receiver in high school nor in junior high. So, it was like kind of a transition for me. But going into my junior year, I really figured it out, and I really felt like I was going to have a big junior year at the wide receiver position. But before camp started, I caught staph infection. And the staph infection was so bad, it put me in the hospital for like 2 weeks. So basically, I missed all of camp. And so then, when I come back, I guess the wide receivers had kind of developed some chemistry and things was looking good. So Coach Nutt called me in the office one day and asked me would I be a starting corner if I was willing to change positions. And so me being competitive, me being a guy that I am, I just want to play and just want to help the team. I switched positions to cornerback. And that was my junior year. And so basically, man, that whole season, I just remember playing off athleticism and talent. I didn't really know how to read the coverages. I didn't really know how to read the details and things of formations and all that stuff. But I just competed. And I competed every game. And I went on to win the 2008 Cotton Bowl Defensive MVP that year. And I came back my senior year and won a combo again. And so now, but one thing that I can say that I am proud of, I didn't go to school to be a part of something. I went to school to build. And I feel like during those years that I played at Ole Miss, we put Ole Miss back on the map. We made it cool for kids to look and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to Ole Miss too. Because before then, people didn't really know too much about Ole Miss. They just know Archie Manning played there a long time ago, and his son played there. That's it. Didn't too many people know about Ole Miss until the 2006-2010 season when we had put Ole Miss back on the map.
Right. And we know, now I did get a chance to watch you play in college on TV, and I was like, man, he's still competing that hard at that size, and it's like you was a little man, but you was a giant amongst big men. We're going to take this intermission, and we'll be right back. It's Beyond the Game with our own Marshay Green. We're back. We're back. It's Beyond the Game with our own Marshay Green. We want to thank y'all for tuning back in. Marshay, we was talking about your accolades and the things you were doing at Ole Miss. Kind of tell us about once you start getting that popularity on campus as being a small man but a big dog on campus. How did that start to affect your focus, or did it affect your focus?
Basically, it didn't affect my focus, but the day I stepped on campus, I was like talking like as if I'm in Bassett. Like, everything I did at practice at Bassett, I did it once I got to Ole Miss. So I can remember the first 7-on-7 practice. The first 7-on-7 practice. It's the offense and the defense. And this is my freshman year. And my freshman year was Patrick Willis' senior year. He's a Hall of Famer, the best linebacker in Ole Miss history, one of the top college players of all time. But during the time when I first went to Ole Miss, I didn't really know who he was. But I'm talking north of him just like I've been knowing him for like 10 years, 20 years. And he liked that. And so me and him kind of hit it off. But all of my teammates started to kind of cling to me and kind of engage in competitive things like playing the game, competing, just in anything, the smallest thing. And I feel like I helped bring that culture to Ole Miss, and I'm pretty sure a lot of guys can vouch for that.
Right. I know for a fact coming up, LSU really wasn't the lick either. Coming up as a child, it was more about still Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida. I know when I was coming along, but when you did come along, you guys that era, you guys did put a spark back into the Ole Miss program. Now we know that you went on and you changed positions and started playing DB. How was it playing in the Cotton Bowl and shutting down the number one wide receiver at the time, Michael Crabtree? Because that's your highlight that I think boosts you on into the NFL, if I could say.
Right, man. Basically, man, that was my first year playing corner, like I said. So during the year, I was still kind of struggling with trying to figure out formations, tendencies, and just seeing the game from a different view. So, the stuff was different for me. But I can remember leading up to that game, I got a lot of calls from people back home, friends, family members, just trying to see was I ready to compete. And also, I can remember during the practice, Deion Sanders came to practice, and he talked to me, and he talked to the cornerback, and he told us he was going to be watching because he came against the number one wide receiver in the country, and it was projected at the time to be a top 5 pick. He came to practice, and he gave us a lot of advice. And specifically, he told me, if I get the pick, high step. And so I told him, when I get the pick, I was going to high step. So, man, basically, I was ready to compete from the jump. I didn't have no fear in me. And I knew that I was going to have a good game versus Michael Crabtree. Now, once that game was over, there were scouts trying to get me to come out. But I felt like I didn't know enough about the position. And so I needed to go back to school. Back to school to kind of learn more about playing DB.
So what decision did you end up making once the scouts came at you about, hey, ride it now or the wave may not be there?
Well, man, obviously I made the decision to go back to school. But if I could do it all over, I would have left my junior year, or when I came out of high school, I would have changed positions to cornerback. Because I feel like if I would have started out at cornerback, By the time my junior year came around, I could have been a possible All-American because I'm learning the position. I've been through growing pains, and I know what I'm looking at. So kids don't understand that once you train positions, there's a transition. There's a learning period. I didn't understand it because I was so competitive, and I just wanted to compete. But hindsight 2020, I would have came out my junior year, and I would have changed positions when I came out of high school to cornerback.
Right. So, do you feel like that put you back in the free agency realm of getting drafted because you end up going to the league, to the Cardinals as a free agent? Do you think not leaving kind of put a hinder on your draft status?
No, what I think really put a hinder on my draft status is me listening to my agent and going to Florida to train. And I was all banged up still then. Like, I'm talking, I had tendonitis in both of my knees that was like bad. And plus, the training there wasn't as like, the type of training that I was used to if I'm trying to get ready for something. Those guys there was just there to tell me, do this, do that. And if I wanted to stop doing that, like I could stop doing that. Opposed to training with my strength and conditioning coach at Ole Miss and him pushing me and pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. That's the reason why I think when I got invited to the combine, my combine numbers was bad because I didn't train right. But I also wish that I didn't go to the combine because people go to the combine if, like, they like projected to go first round and they run a second higher, they could be the number one overall pick. And if you go to the combine, you're going to lose money, basically, because you're up all day from 5 a.m. in the morning to 12 o'clock at night, every day. And you have to run and do physical activities, too. So hindsight, I definitely would have been turned down a combine invitation, and I definitely would have never went down to train at Dr. Andrews' place. Now, during that time, I did play in the Texas versus the Nation All-Star game, and I was a strong corner. But I broke my hand that game and didn't know it until I got back to Dr. Andrews' place. So once I went to the combine, I couldn't catch balls. I couldn't lift weights. The only thing that I could do was run. And so that is what I feel like kind of dropped my stock until the undrafted. Because before then, I was projected to go in the 5th or the 4th round. But then I fell all the way down. Because, I ain't the biggest person in the world, and I don't pass the eye test. You got to give me a chance to see that I'm worth it. But how it goes, I ain't passed the eye test. So,
whenever you say the eye test, they're looking at your physical stature, right?
Yeah, man, like 6 feet, 195 pounds. And like me, I'm 5'9", I'm 180 pounds. And during the time that I was transitioning onto the league was getting used to big corners like guys like Sherman and all those guys, 6'1", 6'2", 6 feet. And so that's something that always plagued me, though. I never passed the eye test. So, guys got chances before me because they passed the eye test.
So pretty much from Pee-wee, high school, college, and then on to the NFL, you feel like you always been the underdog due to your size?
No. Well, that's a fact, but I was delusional enough to think, no, I'm not the underdog. I'm the best out here, always. But I had to carry that with me because I'm 5'8", 180. But I didn't realize that my size affected me until I got to the National Football League, or until I started to prepare to go to the National Football League. That's the first time in my whole career that I started to think about my size, because people kept on bringing it up so much to me about 5'9", 5'9", 5'9", and during the time teams were looking for 5'11" to 16 corners. So,
and so when we know that the process can be tedious and it can be frustrating when someone doubting you. What was going through your mind once you start hearing about your size may be a factor at the next level?
I wasn't too much tripping on it, man, because I heard it a little bit in college. Once I changed positions to cornerback, I heard it a little bit in college, but I never let my size get me along the way. Now, once I started to hear about it during the draft process, I'm like, well, as long as I get drafted, that's all I care about. I don't care if it's in the 7th round. I don't care if it's the last pick. As long as I get drafted. Because I had understood that if I got drafted, my chances of staying in the National Football League is a lot longer than being a free agent. Because teams put time into you. Teams, like, they pay to get your film. Teams spend time scouting you. But if teams don't scout you, then it's like, hey, you're just a fish in the water, man.
Right. So being drafted as a free agent by the Cardinals, when we come back, we want to get into that and your experience with the Cardinals, and we want to know what really happened with the Arizona Cardinals when we come back after this intermission. Welcome back. We're still with Beyond the Game with our own Marshay Green. Now, Marshay, you were drafted free agent 2010 with the Cardinals. You were doing pretty good with what we could see in the preseason and the articles and the hype, even on ESPN. What really happened with the Arizona Cardinals, bro?
Well, man, actually, on draft day, they called me and they told me they may take. Well, my agent called me. I'm sorry. He called me and he said the Cardinals are looking to draft you coming up in the 6th round. And so I'm sitting there like, yeah, okay, cool, man. My dream is finally coming true. Man. And so the pick comes in and they pick a guy that plays the same position as me, but he's 1 inch taller than me and he's 1 second faster than me. And so when I didn't get drafted, once the rounds was over with, I was hurt. I was like mad. I was upset. But that only lasted probably like a day or two because I knew that I was getting a chance to play in the National Football League or having a chance to compete for a roster spot. That's all I wanted to do was compete. So going into Arizona, my experience in the National Football League, my experience with the Cardinals, all of my years of playing organized football was the worst experience of my sports career. I felt like that they was trying, I just couldn't accept what they wanted me to be. And that was a person who didn't know if he belonged or not. And from the jump, I knew I belonged because that's the confidence I have in me. So, we training during the off season. This probably like 2 months. Probably like 2 months after the draft, or whatever the case may be. And so the corner who they drafted, he's training with me. So, we trained for probably like 2 weeks or whatever. And they cut him. And they cut him because I was doing better than him. You probably can find this somewhere on the internet, but there's an article that's on the internet about them cutting their 6th-round draft pick because of an undrafted free agent. And they traded him, not cut him, I take it back. They traded him to the Philadelphia Eagles for Charles Scott, who is from Louisiana also, who I do know too. They traded him for Charles Scott. And so when that happened, I'm just thinking like, man, so why I had to go through all that of not getting the financial side of it that he got when I knew I was better than him. And they could just see on film that I was better than him. So that kind of messed with me a little bit, but I shook that off. I kept it picking. The whole preseason, when I lasted through the first game, the second game, the third game, and the fourth game, my first year, I knew for a fact I was going to make the team. I'm telling you, got veterans on the team, kind of hidden that I was going to make the team. My DB coach during the time was Donnie Henderson. He told me I had made the team. The cuts usually come out on a Friday and Saturday. The last preseason game was played on a Thursday. My name never came out on the NFL website of being cut. My head coach during the time with Ken Wisdom called me on a Sunday night and explained to me that they are going to have to put me back on a practice squad because of a numbers game, or some people saying. I didn't know what that meant during the time. The only thing that I knew is that I'm not going home. I have a chance. I'm still here. I'm still part of the team. So, I stayed the whole entire year on the practice squad, man. The whole entire year. But the thing was, they would give our practice squad the best practice squad award to the best player who is practicing the best. And every week I got it. But it started to become a slap in my face how hard I was practicing and how good I was doing to just receive these little vouchers when the team could just put me on the roster. So, I started to get kind of frustrated a little bit. I started talking to people. But then the Cardinals took me off the practice squad and put me on the roster week 14. They didn't play me. They just paid me. And so I took that as, all right, so the team is just kind of rewarding me for my hard work, whatever the case may be. The following year, I'm going to come back and start. So, I had it already in my mind that I'm coming back to start my second year at the punt return and the corner. During the time, Dominique Rogers-Cromartie was one of the top corners in the league. He was on our team. They traded him. They traded him for Kevin Cobb, which is a quarterback. And when the draft came up, they drafted Patrick Peterson. So, I was kind of like, what? Because you play the same position, I'm going to do the same thing. So, I knew then that, okay, something is up, but I ain't tripping. I'm just going to compete. I'm just going to give it my all. And it was one day in training camp, as I was running with the tools, the coach tapped me on my shoulder, and he told me to let Patrick Peterson go in. That's when I didn't understand what the fuck was going on. Sorry about that. But I was clueless what was going on. So basically, I just sat down there. And so I sat down because I saw the writing. Because I saw the writing that was on the wall. The team is not trying to give me a fair chance. It's all about these draft picks. They have to play these draft picks. So my second year there was a wasted year. They put me back on the practice squad. I didn't make the team. And that whole year, I just soaked. That whole year, man, I was trying to leave Arizona. I was calling my agent every day, telling them to get me up out of Arizona because the team is not giving me a chance. And if you know the business, you have 3 years of practice squad eligibility. This is my second year that they're using up. And so, man, I'm getting frustrated. things got so frustrating to where I just sat down talking to people, period. Like, basically, man, I have to talk to my mom every day. I have to talk to my pop every day. I kind of sat down talking to them, too, because I was frustrated and I didn't know where this was headed. But I did know that I was practicing hard every day. I was practicing good. I was making great plays. And I was doing enough to be put on the roster because the team had a losing record my first year and the second year. So if the team has a losing record, why can't you put him on the roster to see what he got? Because I don't care how good you practice, you have to get those game reps in order to excel and in order to continue to get better in the NFL. And they never gave me that chance. And they just wasted 2.5 years of practice squad eligibility because they felt like they wanted other guys to win with and not win with me.
Wow. So pretty much you're seeing that it's politics keeping you off the field. You know these guys are not better than you, or you got just as equal talent as they do, and you're seeing the politics unfold before your eyes, and this is discouraging because it's something out of your control, right?
Definitely, and everything was new to me because I never dealt with politics because the best person always played. Even in college, the best person always played. And so going back to me not being drafted, I kind of knew that I was going to have this uphill battle being an undrafted free agent, trying to make the roster with guys that's getting paid millions of dollars or guys that got drafted before me. So this year goes back to my first year there. I knew for a fact that I made that team. Like I said, I had teammates tell me I made that team. As once time started to go on, I started to realize how important it was for the Cardinals to put me on the roster opening day my first year. My salary would have been guaranteed. Even if they sent me home week 2, week 3, my salary would have been guaranteed. And plus, me being an undrafted free agent guy, making the opening day roster, that sets my whole career off. And teams and scouts and coaches look at me differently. I get 4 and 5 and 6 chances once I leave the Cardinals to go and compete to try to make a roster spot for other teams if they would have put me on a roster opening day because that's good for a free agent guy.
So not understanding the business and really understanding to be able to maneuver through the politics and work things out for yourself, your agent not really giving you a heads up because he see it unfolding too. That became the frustrating part where you just wanted away from there. You wanted no more part of it. What did you end up doing with the agent? What was his explanation of why he couldn't get you out of there the first year?
Well, he would always tell me, man, I just talk to people in the front office. They tell him that they like you, and they tell me that you're a great player. They want to keep you. That's what he kept saying. And until I just fired him. And if you know of my agent, his name is Jimmy Sexton. He's one of the highest profile agents in sports, period. I think his top client is Nick Saban, probably. But every day, man, I'm calling him. Every day, man, I'm like, man, you got to get me up out of here. You got to get me up out of here. And that just didn't happen. Plus, man, me and the head coach didn't see eye to eye. Every other coach I was cool with on the staff. They liked me. But for some reason, the head coach didn't like me. He didn't like the way I carry myself, I guess. But he was never for me. I never saw him congratulate me or clap for me. I never saw any of that. And so it was time for me to leave, man.
Now that was Coach Winston Hunt?
Yeah.
Now you say throughout your career you never had a problem with any coach. But for some strange reason you get to the Cardinals, and Hunt decides that he possibly, from what I'm hearing, from what we spoke earlier, I would call it bullying and targeting. How were you feeling?
Man, from playing ball, it's almost 20 years. I've had the opportunity to deal with a lot of different personalities from the head coach, from Coach Bradshaw to Coach Ed Ogeron. These guys' personality is like amped up 10 times, and I never had a problem with them. I never had a problem with Christian Nutt. I never had a problem with no coach. If a player show up on time, if a player practice hard, and if a player is coachable, no coach should never have a problem with him. But for some reason, I just feel like Ken Whisenhunt wasn't up in my corner at all. And I can remember my second year there. The last game of the season was against the Seattle Seahawks. And I remember that before the game, sitting beside Patrick Peterson, Rashad Johnson, and a couple of other players. And Ken Whisenhunt literally found me, walked up to me, and asked me, was I scared? That's the first time a coach has ever asked me that. That's the first time, I heard that. And, just from that, I'm like, man, this dude ain't for me, man. I know this dude ain't for me. And so the whole game I'm playing thinking if the head coach like me or not, man. Which takes away from me playing up to the level that I know I can play to.
Right. So let's go to what I would say was a time where as a spectator and looking at your size and everything you spoke about, Marshay, when we saw this particular moment in the game when you were hurdled over in a preseason game, it was like, okay, we kind of felt too, bro, that they're going to use that against him because they used that in the top 100 for the holidays. I mean, they just wouldn't let it ride. When that happened, that particular moment, you frustrated, you probably was mad during that game. What was going through your mind when that happened?
No, man. Actually, I never thought about that play, about a guy jumping over my head. That actually was my first year, and he was playing against the Tennessee Titans, actually. But that never crossed my mind because I saw guys get jumped over. It's part of football. If, he's coming at me, I'm going to go low to try to tackle him. That's part of football. I saw some of the best football players get jumped over. It's part of football. But they probably held that against me, but I never thought that they held that against me. It's crazy because we go back and watch film of that game, and I had the highest grade as a corner that game.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, yet still in this process, you steady getting the accolades, you steady getting the ratings, but Whisenhunt just for whatever reason, he won't let you go. He want to stay on your back. You even distance yourself from people. He could feel that he can put the pressure on you, and I think maybe once he felt he put that pressure on you, that's all he wanted. How did that end in Arizona?
I would say that there was days, man, where I would go to practice and I feel like no matter what I do out here today, they still not gonna put me on the roster. And there was one time in practice I caught 7 picks. 7 picks. I caught 3 and 7 on 7 and 4 and 10. And they just acted like it was just a regular, normal day or whatever. And so there was plenty of days where I didn't want to go to practice, and I never felt like that. I never felt like if I go out here and ball out at practice, nothing is gonna happen. That's how I felt during my time in Arizona. So And Wisenhunt didn't really have that much communication with me at all. Really. Like, I can't tell you how many times I talked to this dude and had a positive conversation with him. And so, my time there just ended bad, man.
Wow. So you move on and you go to Indianapolis. You got a sour taste in your mouth about the political game.
Right.
First bad experience with a coach. Now, Marshay, tell us what's going through your mind now, bro.
So basically, when they cut me in Arizona, I'm sitting on the couch at home in Phoenix thinking, dang, man, they cut me. But, man, I knew I was going to make that team. So the coach called week 5. I think it's week 5. And they signed me. They put me on the practice squad. But during my time there, they really gave me a chance to compete and really gave me a chance to make the roster. They took me off the practice squad within 3 weeks and put me on the roster. They played me some games they didn't, but they put me on the roster and they rewarded me. But it took me 3 years. I spent 3 years, or almost 3 years, in Arizona trying to make a roster. 3 years. But then I go to the other team and I'm on a roster. So I finished out my first season there. And my second season there, Chuck Pagano came back because Chuck Pagano had got cancer. So, I had to reintroduce myself to him, just the head coach, blah, blah, blah. And during my time there, I reflected on my time in Arizona. Like, what did I do wrong in Arizona? And it went back to the politics. So going into my second season, or like going into the second off season with the coach, I made it my business. Do not let these people see you with a frown on your face. Even if you like laugh on the depth chart, even if like you feel like they slight you, smile, man. As soon as you come into the building, speak to all the coaches, talk to them more, blah, blah, blah. So that's what I did. I talked to all the coaches, got familiar with everybody, played the politics game, And so I'll never forget it. This was our exit meetings before we went home prior to training camp. So during the exit meeting, I'm talking to my DB coach about the roster spots, campus stuff coming up. And I can remember me asking Hammer, will I have a fair chance to make this team, Hammer? And he told me he didn't know. And from there, I kind of took that in, but I didn't get mad because I know how things was in Arizona. I can't let these people see me mad, so I can't let them see me mad. So, I just said, all right, cool. So when camp started, I came back. And as soon as the roster came out, it's like, I think it was 11 corners or 12 corners, and I'm all the way last. The bottom of the depth chart, I'm last. At the bottom of the depth chart, last. And I can remember being mad, but I didn't let it show. I didn't let them people see me mad like that. But as each day passed, I started passing them corners. I made it all the way up to the 5th corner spot. And the coach was going to keep 5 corners. Everybody else, they cut. And they chose a guy who was there already, who the coaches was familiar with. They kept him. And I can remember talking to the GM during the exit meeting. He told me, if anybody deserves to make this team, Marshay, then you deserve to make this team. If anybody who has worked harder and has put forth the effort is you, you deserve to make this team. But as you know, we keep 5 safeties. The teams usually keep 4 safeties. They kept 5 safeties. And so he told me, if a corner get hurt, you're going to be the first DB we call to put back on the roster. So, I took that in, even though I was kind of upset, I took that in, and I believed that the coach was going to call me if a corner got hurt. So, I'm sitting down and I'm watching the first game they played. A corner got hurt. They didn't call me. Right then and there, I knew, okay, yeah, that's over for you going back to the coach. Because people ain't going to lie to you right in your face and have you back in the building like too much tension. So that's what happened there, man.
Right, bro. We're going to take another intermission, and we want to talk about leaving the Colts and going on and having a pretty good career, 2 seasons in the CFL. And you say that was probably your best experience you ever had. But when we come back, we want to talk about that. But first, I want you to explain to the people why you say the NFL stands for not for long. We'll be right back with Marshay Green. Welcome back. We're still here beyond the game with Marshay Green. Before we left, Marshay, you was explaining, you gave us a whole layout about never having a problem with a coach, staying competitive, doing what you're supposed to do as a man that may be undersized, and not understanding the politics once the big show finally arrives, to feel you're not being treated fairly by your head coach, never having that type of experience through your career, to finally letting the NFL go and moving on to the CFL. But explain to the people in your way why you say the NFL stands for not for long.